previewing the defensive side of the ball at the NFL Scouting Combine, and Jared Verse, the top edge rusher in the 2024 NFL Draft. He needs to have a big week. We're going to talk about this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. You know, I got to kick this intro to my guy, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champion, and I am here. We are here to bring you championship level content surrounding the NFL Draft 24/7, 365. DP, this week is Combine Week, man. And listen, man, yesterday we went over the offensive prospects with the most to gain, the most to lose, and we had a really good conversation about the Combine. Today, we are talking about the defensive prospects. Yes, we flipped the sides of the football. We're talking about those defensive prospects with the most to gain, those guys with the most to lose. They don't run the fast 40s. Their draft stock can plummet. And then we're going to talk about Caleb Williams is not working out. Marvin Harrison Jr., he may not work out. He may skip pro day. So we're going to have an action-packed show, a lot of conversation, a lot of fun pieces, man. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in. But DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit him with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Defensive prospects with the most to gain. Keith, I said it in the opening, Jared Verse. And I think for me, what it is a confirming some things, right? Stamping, checking boxes. One of the main things we talk about with Verse is his explosiveness, his frame, his quick twitch, right? All the athleticism that he brings downhill. Show us that, right? In the testing.
I was going to say he's another, and I guess this is the Florida State theme, right? Once their quarterback got hurt, he's another. I won't say out of sight, out of mind, right? But he's lost some draft steam just, I think, by being out of sight, right? I think he's still in the back of people's mind, but he's just kind of just sitting there a little bit. People, you know, they want to lay to a whole lot more, right? But forget what Jared Verse could do as an edge rusher. So I agree with you, and I think there's some thresholds that he's probably going to have to hit to get people's attention, right? I think it's going to be more about how does he physically look also, right? Is he 6'4"? Is he 6'3"? Is he 6'2" and 7/8", right? I think all of those, and it shouldn't matter when it comes to football, but I think as far as picking momentum and gaining momentum, right, that I think it is going to matter. And one important thing that I thought about, DP, was his 10-yard split, right? And also, we know you're going to see the simulcams, right, with other edge rushers in the past and things like that. So we've seen guys, you know, you're just talking about in the past where these defensive ends have run 4.5s, 4.48s, right? And so I wonder where he's going to come in that 40 time, but I'll probably be paying attention more to the first 10-yard split.
Yeah, no, and I think you brought up a good point about this frame, right? Like you want to see how tall is he? You know, how much weight does he come into the combine with? And I think the arm length for some people are going to be another threshold he needs to hit as well. You know, just to deal with those long arm tackles in the NFL. But like you said, it feels like he was the top edge rusher coming into the 2023 college football season. Right, coming in off of the summer, people are like, man, Jared Verse, a guy who was a projected top 20, top 15 pick in 2023. People are now maybe Leitu's better, right? Like maybe Dallas Turner's better. Not you want Jared Verse to go out there and just stamp himself, right? Handle things, the things you can control. Go out there and handle those. If you know you're going to test well. Things of that nature. We're talking about testing well, Keith. Austin Booker from Kansas. That edge rusher who we saw down in Mobile, who flashed and showed a lot of the athleticism, the fluid movements, quickness, speed to power, different things like that. I think this is just another opportunity for him to continue to raise his stock. When you talk about the top edge rushers in this class, or just edge rushers period in this class, because I think a misnomer about this class was that it was a top heavy group. It was Verse, Latu, and Turner, right? And then, but you got Braswells, you got Bookers, you got all these different guys, Adisa Isaacs, Nelson Caesars. There's a lot of different body types and skill sets in this edge group. And I think Austin Booker can kind of leapfrog some guys to maybe he could find himself in the tier 2 of that, being probably put up there with the Chris Braswell, where you say, you know what, this is a toolsy kid that brings a lot to the table, and I don't mind taking him in the second round.
Yeah, no, I can see that being the case, right? Because that's, like you said, that second tier of edge rushers is still out there. And DP, listen, I'm going to go to an entire position group with the most to gain, and it's cornerbacks, right? I think it's the Terrion Arnolds, it's the Kool-Aid McKinstry's, it's the Nate Wiggins, because I think if you ask 10 different people who's the CB1, you're probably gonna get 10 different answers, right? So whoever, and you throw in Quinyon Mitchell also, right? Whoever's going to be that guy as far as testing athletically high, I think they're going to help build their case for cornerback 1, because all of these guys are in the conversation. Now it's about who's going to stamp and approve themselves, right? And I think that's going to be an interesting conversation, because I think a lot of people want to put Terrion on, right? Because we see the athleticism. So if he comes out there and run a 4.39 or 4.4 flat, right, then you have a conversation. Kool-Aid McKinstry runs a 4.4 flat, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot he was that good, right? And then he may be cornerback run. Nate Wiggins, right? This conversation that he can run a 4.29, 4.28, something crazy like that at 6'1", 6'2", right? That's going to be a conversation. And then Quinyon Mitchell, coming off of the Senior Bowl week where he was straight up locked down and was one of the winners, I think that he has an opportunity to turn his small school name to where it's a draft community to start to become a household name, right? Pre-draft, and I think that helps you build momentum also.
Keith, also, sticking with that cornerback group, TJ Tampa over at Iowa State, you know what I'm saying? Him, being 6'2", 200 pounds, and, hearing from different people that, man, he could run in the 4.3s. You see a guy that big, that tall, body type, long limbs and everything. If you can go out there and bust a 4.3 anything, like, that's a really good way to set yourself up to where people then, as we talked about on the offensive side, when we did the last segment yesterday, it was like, how do you value this event? It's like, man, see what happens. If something good happens and somebody pops and does something you don't expect, now go back to the tape. I remember 2 drafts ago when Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker both ran 4.3s, and people were like, hey, there's no way. There's no way. I'm like, go check the tape. These are 2 fast, explosive dudes. And then you see them in the league, and they're running away from people in open field. Keith is like, guys, the 40 didn't lie for him. It was real. So I think for a TJ Tampa, man, I think, especially in this cornerback group, again, it's a good class, but I think an Ennis Rakestraw, I hope he's healthy now, because he was supposed to be at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I wonder even. Yeah, that's gonna be tough, because even if he's healthy, I wonder if he feel like he's had enough time to train properly. And you're talking about he's another cornerback, right? You're talking about potentially everybody like top 15, top 20, somewhere in there. He comes out and performs well. The film checks out. He can be cornerback 1, right? So I'm right there with you with just throwing in that name also.
Keith, how important? How much does Cam Kinchins? How much steam can he regain after a subpar showing at the Senior Bowl?
Maybe a little. I don't know, DP. I don't see it in. Maybe it's because I'm also not projecting him to run very fast either. Yeah. So maybe that's why I can't. Maybe if he runs a 4.3, right, people will start to buy back in. But it's kind of hard to erase. Ooh, and I don't want to throw this name out there, but I got to do it. And it's not. I'm not comparing them, DP. I'm not comparing them. But even when I went through the draft process with Cole Strange, it was hard for me, even watching the game film, right, which was really good. It was hard for me to go back after watching the Senior Bowl practices and those reps. I couldn't erase that from my mind, right? And maybe that's how I feel about Cam as of now, right? But I think he's just going to fall. He's probably going to be a 4th-ish round. You know what I'm saying? Somewhere around there. I just think that's probably where he'll fall. But maybe if he runs a whole lot faster, he can elevate it some. So I'll say that maybe he can elevate it some. But I think is going to be hard to shake a lot of people's thought processes when after what they've seen for Senior Week. But DP, let's keep going, man. Listen, the prospect with the most to gain. Now we're about to talk about those prospects with the most to lose. And DP, I'm gonna give a little bit of a hint. I'm going into the trenches, man. I'm going to the trenches and talk about the trenches. So coming up next, man, we're talking about those NFL combine prospects with the most to lose.
Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets back with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, if you're a Detroit Pistons fan like myself, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, all right, Drew Holiday, whoever your favorite players are, you can bet on them. But you also bet on the teams that you love as well. The Celtics, the Nuggets, the Miami Heat. You can bet on those teams just as well with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and shoot your shot. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and shoot your shot. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's the first thing that you would do if you had an extra hour in your day? Would you go for a run, go for a walk, go work out in the gym, take a nap, read a book? What would you do? We always talk about, man, if I had just that one extra hour or two. For what, though? To do more work on more spreadsheets, work on more reports for your boss, things that really don't make you happy, right? Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. The things that make you happy, you should actually invest more time into, simply because that helps push you forward to be the best version of yourself. And without that, right, the ability to learn positive coping skills, set boundaries, the ability to empower you to be your best self is important. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/locked-on today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked-on. Defensive prospects with the most to lose, Keith. I got to go to the linebackers, those second level defenders in a class that's been just labeled as not great. You know what I mean? Especially Barrett Carter going back to school, Danny Stutzman going back to school. But I look at two names, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. from Clemson, and then Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State, right? Two ACC guys. Peyton, the reason why he's got the most to lose is I think if he goes out there, I think testing-wise, measurement, he's going to check all the boxes, right? His tape is great. This is a versatile guy. He can rush off the edge. He blitz. He drops off in the coverage. He plays the run. Really athletic on tape and could just wear so many different hats in terms of how you want to utilize him. But it's the medicals. That's where he can lose. And it's something that, truthfully, he can't control, right? It's different when you can say, all right, I know I can run a 4 or whatever, and I run it. But when they do the medical testing and they say, you know, we see some long-lasting issues with the ACL. There's nothing you can change about that. There's nothing you can control about that, you know, you've suffered some injuries and there's some long-lasting effects that could scare some teams off from drafting you day 1, early day 2, and you fall to 3rd round, you know, worst case, and, you know, top of day 3, you know what I mean? So I think that's where he could lose, is more so just the medical testing. If things don't come out squeaky clean, or, you know, at the end of the day, every prospect is an investment, a financial investment for these teams. Yep. And teams feel like, man, the higher I draft you, the more I pay you. And the higher, you know, the more I pay you, the more I expect on the return. And if they have questions about, well, how long will you last in this league with these injury red flags, if there are any, that's when you kind of run into that issue of, I don't know how high I'll draft you.
Yeah, and you think about a guy who is probably going to retire this year and had a decent career, but it was off and on. Leighton Vander Esch, right? And he was a guy that I believe, if I'm correct, I remember he had slight medicals coming out of the
I believe
coming
so.
coming out of college, yeah, and then I think early in his career they popped up, and then it just continued, right? And I'll be honest, DP, I'm just one of those guys. It depends on obviously what the injury is, but I think it's usually one injury, and then you usually get a kind of like a snowball effect, right? To where it's another some, it's something else, and then it's something else. So definitely, I could see NFL teams. And you talking about with the most to lose is definitely because of the injury checks out and things like that. DP, I told you I'm going to the trenches, man, and I'm going to the trenches, and I'm going to name two names, man. One, Byron Murphy. Two,
Mm.
Jerzon Newton. He say prospects with the most to lose, and here's why. Both extremely explosive athletes. I like them a lot. We talking about just film for film, right? Really good football players deserve to be top 25. If you're talking about a big boy, right? And I like both guys a whole lot. But I'm looking at it from this perspective, DP. We know that the NFL is still a height, weight, speed type situation, right? And both of those guys, I think Jerzon is listed at 6'2", right? 290. And then Byron Murphy is listed at, I think, 6'1", 290, somewhere around there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what if they're 6 foot 275, right? Or 282 or something like that. And their testing numbers are average. I think people are going to start to question that, right? And that's why I say that they may have the most to lose, because right now I believe that everybody's overlooking the height, weight situation, but I can't foresee that every team will overlook that. Somewhat same with Kalijah Kancey. Kalijah Kancey still in the first round, but I think for some teams, right, or early on before the combine, people had him at, oh man, he's a top 10 pick, right? He's the number one D tackle off the board, and it just didn't play out like that. So I'm interested to see how that will go for those guys, because I think it is going to matter when you talk about what position you're going to put them in, and then also depending on what their height and their weight is, that's going to allow you to be like, hey, they only can be in X scheme, right? And then now that potentially eliminates half the teams, right? If we're a 4-3 or 3-4, and then now you're talking about potentially sliding down the board. So if it's going to be interesting, I think, for those two guys, what the conversation becomes once we get the true measurements for those guys.
No, 100%, Keith. I love those name polls. Like you said, if they measure in an inch or two shorter, the conversation might vary a little bit, right? And it's just, and then like you said, if you are going to be shorter and you come in lighter, you got to test very well to kind of counteract
I
that.
think Kalijah still ran a pretty fast 40.
I think Elijah still tested very almost freakish, almost like he tested very athletic, if I remember correctly, Keith. And I think it's going to be big for those two guys, especially because they're viewed as the top two interior defensive linemen in the class, where you got Byron got the same on the guy on his team that played alongside him, T'Vondre Sweat, who's like what 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", and I'm pretty sure he's a legit 6'4".
DP, and you know what? That's another guy, right? T'Vondre Sweat. He's another guy. You talk about just a whole lot to lose. I'm with you 100%.
He's got and I wanted to ask Keith, okay, because Jordan Davis coming out of Georgia, was that he played at what 350, 360 or something like that. He got to the combine, he came in at 340, if I remember correctly. He ran that 4.7. He looked super athletic and everything. But remember, even last year with Bryce Young came in, didn't do anything but get his height, his weight, arm length, hand size, all that type of stuff. He didn't run, he didn't jump, he didn't throw. Right? He came in at 190, 195, or 205, somewhere in there, right? But everybody knew he played at 185, 187. So how much does a weigh-ins really matter in terms of this may not be what you weigh in at come training camp or day or week one of the season?
Well, so this is the thing, and this is why you want to see those guys do both events, is because sure, you can put on all that weight, right? But if it goes the opposite way to where you put on all the weight and then now you run a slower 40. So I think it unlike the Senior Bowl would be somewhere I think the guys can put on weight, right? Because they don't have to run. So they can put on weight, and it's like, hey, if I'm a running back, I want to, measure in at 5'10", 225 when I've been playing at 215. That's okay, right? Because nobody's, going to be athletically testing me as far as a 40-yard dash time. But I think that the trainers at this point with the NFL Combine, they're trying to find that happy medium to where it's like, hey, okay, instead of putting on 10, let's put on 5. And so that way you could still run this 4.55 40 or something like that, right? I think the fact that if those guys run, then I think it has to be a little bit more honest because they don't want to carry the extra weight. Now, if those guys just, they weigh in and things like that, and then nobody's testing and you have questions about the weight one way or the other, then yeah, of course, I think that's when you start to question it. But yeah, I think the 40-yard dash, and I mean, even the 3 cones and things like that, it makes them be honest about, what they could potentially play at, because they still have to test. And even with T'Vondre Sweat, right? I think he will. He's probably going to cut weight, right? And the conversation with him, and that's why I want to throw him in the most to lose, is because the Jordan Davis comp is out there. But I'm not saying it's a negative way. I'm saying Jordan Davis comp is out there and those benchmarks out there. So Jordan Davis ran at 4.6, 4.7, right? What are you going to run, T'Vondre Sweat? Jordan Davis jumped out the building, right? What are you going to jump? So because that comp is out there and Jordan Davis did the same thing at probably a similar weight, you're probably going to have to meet some of those benchmarks, which that was just freakish athletic testing, right? Like the guy runs fast, he's 350 pounds and run faster than most of the human population. That's not normal, right? So I don't think you can expect T'Vondre Sweat to run that, but there will be an expectation for him to run that, right? So that's why I also put him in that most of the.
I think I'll close out, Keith, with not Nakobe Dean, but with tying into Nakobe Dean. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Remember, Nakobe didn't test. I think he was hurt at the time. If I remember, he was
shoulder, I believe,
yeah, something like that. But I think he weighed in and everything. And we talk about Jordan Davis and T'Vondre having to deal with the benchmarks and the comp to Jordan Davis, right? In terms of weight, how the playing time, how many snaps can you play a game, all that type of stuff. It's going to be the same thing for Jeremiah Trotter. The difference is he's healthy, right? As far as we know, he's healthy. So I want to see him go out there and just test well. Like I'm not saying he got to be Devin White and Devin Bush and hit the 4.4 benchmark, but just don't give me 4.8, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Give me 4.6.
I was about to say a solid 4.58 or something like that, just to show that you a solid athlete. Like I said, I'll even take a 4.62, 4.63.
Yeah.
Like, you can be my Mike Backer anyway. And with Jeremiah Trotter, a lot of his stuff is instinctual stuff anyway, right? So I'm right there with you with the Jeremiah Trotter. Should be an interesting conversation. But DP, let's keep this thing going. Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., right? They are participating minimally, right? They're not doing any on the field drills at all. They're going to meet with the teams. I believe they're weighing in, right? They're doing the height weight situation. And then after that, say we're done. We're going to talk about how to approach this, right? With these guys not working at the NFL, working out at the NFL combine. Is that a notch against them? Or are they trying to hide something? Or is it no big deal at all? And we're going to have that conversation coming up next.
Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your number one ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash, guys. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your number one ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Keep your number one ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Let's bring this thing home. Let's end this. Remember, guys, thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. But Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, none of these guys are testing this week at the Combine. Marvin Harrison, the word came out that he's not testing at the Pro Day. I tweeted out, Keith, I don't mind any of these guys' decisions. I don't mind it. Yes, so, don't get me wrong.
Do you mind? I
want to see the competitiveness. I do.
Yeah,
I don't mind it at all.
Okay, so I want to let's start with Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's start with Marvin Harrison, because this may be the first prospect. I can't remember, and I'm not even about to act like I'm diving deep into the encyclopedia of NFL combine testing, right? But I don't remember a prospect not testing at their pro day either, like a skill position player. How do you feel about that? Is that showing I have something to hide, or like what how do you feel about that? And not that if you like the prospect or not, but
Yeah.
how do you feel about not even testing? If you're a general manager and you're taking a prospect, how do you feel like, man, you're not even going to run at your pro day?
I feel like it's a situation where it's that that new phrase, standing on business, right? Where he's like, man, I'm standing on my tape. I'm resting on that. The freaks list stuff came back out from from the Athletic about how how high he jumped, how fast he is on everything. I think quarterback plays a little bit in this too, because I can think if that was CJ Stroud's pro day as well, he knows he's going to get on target passes, even on air, stuff like that. One thing I have heard is that, from people who have dealt with him and know him or close to that program is like he's very calculated in terms of the decisions he makes, and I'm pretty sure Marvin Harrison Sr. somewhere in his ear like, you know what, relax, it's all good. We've seen what you put on tape for 2 years. They know what you put on tape for 2 years. Go and interview, go talk to these people, but you don't have to actually run anything. And for me, it's just like, all right, did I have some true speed concerns on tape? Not really. You know what I mean? Like once he stacks guys, he gets vertical and he's gone. Like, you know what I mean? He can move for a big 6'4" guy. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't really mind it. I don't mind it at all. I think it's fine. But if I had questions, like if I was like, how fast, like are you really fast? Like, do I have those concerns? Then I would be a little like, come on, Marv. Like give me 140.
Okay, so DP, you just kind of set the table for that, right? It's like kind of rely on my film, right? So what if all the guys did that? That's the kind of like, what if all the guys was like, you know what? I'm a football player. Rely on my film. So then, could this be the snowball effect to where it's like, hey, if Marvin Harrison Jr. still goes top 5, or Malik Neighbors is looking at him like, you know what? If he ain't running, why should I run? Or then, it trickles down and Keon Coleman saying, you know what? Y'all feel how y'all feel about me. Watch the film. If Xavier Legette says, you know what, I'm not doing it either. If Brian Thomas and Troy Franklin, right, they both say, hey, we speed vertical guys, we out too. That's the part that I get to, and I'm kind of like,
yeah.
And I think the thing is for me is that, and you even look at last year with Jackson Smith and Jigba, right, another Ohio State guy, and Jackson ran, what did he run, like a 4.49 or something like that?
It was something,
and we was like. He's not that fast on film. So for me, it's not really a huge.
You telling me him and Tank Dell ran close to the same thing? No shot.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way, right? I'm not buying that one, right? But I look at it and say, especially at the pro day, because I've experienced obviously time at LSU.
Yeah.
It's a situation for you, right? Just to go out there and do your thing. And I don't think there's anybody, and I don't know if that's his agent or something, or maybe it's the Malik Neighbors conversation coming up of him potentially being wide receiver run, and Marvin runs a 4.52 and Malik runs a 4.39. Could that shift everything? I don't know, but I just always, and this is the conversation we had about Marvin Harrison Jr., is that I think that you know exactly what you're getting so much that the 40 time doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I would want to see you run it, right?
Yeah, you want to see it though. Like,
I just want to see you get out there and see what's going on. And honestly, the part of it, even with the pro day, right, is just seeing you run routes and you know what I'm saying, to like see it live in action, because all we've seen was game film, but it's still a different element, right? When you're watching a guy and you get different, on-field angles of these guys running, you're like, okay, I really like what I see from there. And I get it that it's like, hey, stick to the football part of it. But DP, let's transition. Caleb Williams, right? This is kind of on par, right?
I think we kind of felt this was happening.
Yeah, and I think with these like Caleb probably feels that, hey, I'm quarterback one, hands down, right? And so I think it was a little bit different last year because I thought that Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, did Bryce Young throw? I can't remember if he
at his pro day. At his pro day, he did not the combine.
He didn't throw at the combine. Yeah. So in terms of the combine, you had the CJ Stroud and the Anthony Richardson, and I thought those guys were still throwing for something, meaning that they were still trying to solidify. If y'all feel like Bryce Young is QB1, then I'm QB2, right? Or even there's a little conversation around Bryce being too small to be QB1, right? And CJ Stroud is throwing for that conversation. So I think the Caleb Williams thing is it's probably on par. He's not the first quarterback I've seen do it.
We expected it, Keith. We expected him to. I'll wait till my pro day. It was
Right.
Jayden. The Jayden Daniels one's what kind of caught me slipping. I thought Jayden because
Now, how you feel
we
about the
talked about
Jayden one? Because Jayden should do something. That's my honest opinion. Whether it's run a throw, just go out there and take care of
and
business.
just test, just
Yeah,
go out there and have fun with it.
because I'm telling you, the NFL, I've sat with them for a combine. I promise you, when you don't work out, they looking at it as like you have something to hide.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking at, right? Especially if they have question marks. I'm telling you, they sitting up there, they sitting in the stands, they gonna have their little pen and paper, and they just be sitting there. And in the back of their minds, like, why that guy not working out? Does he have something to hide? We're talking about character stuff, right? Like it's gonna go into so many different things. So, but I think Jayden Daniels will throw at his pro day,
Yeah,
right?
he's throwing at the pro day.
He'll throw at
and
the
I think
pro
it
day.
opens similar to the Marv situation, right? Like when you talk about Keon and Xavier, it opens the floor and so reportedly Malik wasn't going to test or wasn't supposed to test, but even before Marv's decision is what I remember seeing. So I think Bruce Feldman said that's why he left him off the pre-combine freaks list, because it looked like Malik wasn't going to test at all until his pro day. So I was like, well, you know what I mean? That might have kind of spurred Marv to be like, I don't need it. You know what I mean? But then I look at the guys behind him, Troy Franklin, Xavier Worthy, Xavier Leggett, Keon Coleman. That's that opportunity for those guys to then go out there and steal a show. Because when Bryce Young didn't throw and he just came in there and did his weigh-ins and everything, you looked at that throwing session of back and forth with CJ and A-Rich, and it's like, now this is an opportunity for us to take the spotlight, right? So now who's going to take that spotlight from the top guys, who's the Caleb's, Drake May is supposed to throw, I think, from what I read. JJ McCarthy is going to throw. Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Spencer Rattler. Those guys go out there. I want to see y'all step up to the plate and not got them home runs, right? So yeah, make the people in the building forget that Caleb and Jayden aren't there. Drake May, you're trying to jump Jayden. You trying to, well, not even jump. You're trying to keep him off your heels.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's not going to test, you go out there and run. I don't think Drake's going to run, but you go out there and throw, because there's still people. I think he has a great arm. I gotta, and I'm gonna continue to watch. I don't feel like it's Josh Allen arm, but there's a lot of people, big name people in this space, that feel like he has an elite arm, that he's in that Josh Allen.
Well, we about to figure it out.
You got to go do it then.
I told you, I like the more Matthew Stafford comp, but we about to see if he has that Josh Allen. We're about to figure that out. But DP, one thing we do know, man, that this is the best NFL draft content there is out there. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Listen, I didn't say it at the top of the show, but I'm saying it right now, man. Go ahead, hit that like button. Go ahead and comment, and go ahead and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, tell a friend that this is the best NFL draft content there is out there 24/7, 365. Listen, man, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code, man. That right there, co-host, man. The guy I go back and forth with, have these conversations with Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always like to say, man, y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, listen, come on, join the conversation again tomorrow, because we're going to have more information from the combine. We're going to be there in Indianapolis. All right, so tap in with your boys. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.